So last 2 Sundays ago, I think it was like 3 Sundays ago now, because today's Sunday, or 3 Saturdays ago, I was really excited. I had a word which was, the set time is now. And you know when you're really excited and really gingered about the word that God is bringing into your life. So I went to sleep on Saturday night really excited. There was service in the morning and then Ignite, and I was kind of excited and prepared to preach. And I was also meant to be traveling on the Sunday evening. And I woke up in the morning after going to sleep excited with ridiculous amounts of pain in my right leg. And I will try to avoid telling anyone apart from my wife, because if I tell my parents, the first thing is going to be to worry, and I don't want them to worry. So I try not to tell anyone. But I woke up in a lot of pain, and so I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay in bed, I'm going to rest, I'm not going to go to the JLA service, but I am going to preach at the Ignite service. I'm going to be there. And, I've listened to a sermon, and this came up in my mind when it happened. T.D. Jakes preaching about having had really bad surgery, and he had a point where he couldn't stand up, but he was like, he was going to preach the word, he was going to bring the word. So in my head, I was imagining, even if I'm in pain, I'm going to do what God has called me to do, right? And so I go to the Ignite service, I'm still in a lot of pain, I can't do it. And I'm sitting there trying to pretend I'm not in pain, and Alicia ends up taking the service because I'm just in far too much pain to do it. And I've had it for a long time, obviously, all your life, you're born with it, but I've been believing God for it to be different. And I kind of sometimes, like I said, I take it casually. But for that day, I felt such a ridiculous frustration. They're like, God, there is something you've purposed for me to do in this life. And this thing is no longer some inconvenient thing that happens from time to time. It now feels like it is standing right here in front of me in purpose, like a Goliath, and it is in the way of me being able to do what I'm supposed to do. And I was so pained. I was meant to be flying that night. So I've told my parents I had a little bit of pain, but I was like, I'm fine. I'm still going to get on the flight. And so I go home after service, I just rest, and I actually feel a bit better, so I go to the airport. And then when I'm through, I've checked in, and the whole process of checking in, I've been standing for a while, and the pain has started to come back. And I remember speaking to Alicia, and she was like, maybe you just don't get on that flight. And I was like, I've come too far to not get on the flight. So I'm getting on this plane. And so I get on the flight. You know when they lock the doors and like there's no turning back? And I was like, I really wish I could get off this flight, because now the pain is, I can't take it. And on top of it, I don't like flying. But I'm on the plane's taking off, and the pain gets excruciating to the point that now when the plane eventually lands, I cannot walk. They have to get a wheelchair to meet me on board, get me the first person off the flight, and wheeled off the plane. I eventually get to my final destination. Believe it or not, I got on another flight after that. And Alicia kept on referring to it as like, because I believe there was something for me. I really did. And so Alicia kept on referring to it as like the woman with the issue of blood. And she was saying something we were speaking yesterday that kind of just rung in my head. When you ask people what happened with the woman with the issue of blood, she had great faith, right? When she touches the hem of Jesus' garment and she gets healed, Jesus is like, your faith has made you whole. But up until the moment that somebody gets what they're waiting for, faith never looks like faith. It looks like foolishness. And getting on that flight felt a lot like foolishness. But I do it, I'm in ridiculous amounts of pain, and I feel a sense of desperation. And I think that that's what faith feels like a lot of the time. It's desperation. You're desperate for something to shift, something to change in your life, something to move. And it feels like it's just not moving. What happens? I'm not coming here to testify and be like, yo, I'm AA. So let's just, move that expectation. I still believe and I still desire it. But what do you do when you're going through the immense amounts of pain and you still trust God? Because God is still God.